Okay, so you're thinking about becoming a Gartner customer, but there's a lot of information for you to process. It's a big commitment. You want to get things right. However, you're finding it difficult to pull the trigger and make a final decision. Does it sound familiar? Okay, if it does, on this video, we will look at 3 particular areas that may be stopping you or maybe holding you back in making that decision. First of all, why? Really to understand what's the purpose, what's your goal behind becoming a Gartner customer, who is going to manage this, who's going to be your key representative within the organization, let's say post signing the contract, and 3, how this buying process is actually playing out. Okay, as Simon Sinek would say, let's start with why. Why do you want to have a contract with Gartner? So no doubt you are looking to influence them on publishing or referencing your vendor in future research. You want to get named within a market guide. You want to get up in the top right-hand corner of a Magic Quadrant. Very important that you articulate that. However, I think that can create an immense amount of pressure on and expectations, inflated expectations for the relationship moving forward, and the program itself, and especially for the person that has to manage it. So, a recommendation here that I would have would be to open up or let's say broaden your why to include other strategic areas within the organization, and not just solely have it about getting published. Okay, so it should address other whys within your organization. So I would recommend trying to align this with other projects that are going on within the organization, so other strategic projects. Now this could be, you want to, for example, improve renewals. You might be looking to going towards a cloud strategy, improving engagements with your customer. You might have even talent rotation issues within your organization. You might be looking to move towards an M&A. You might be looking to exit within the next 3 years. So these are all valid points that you can address with Gartner. So I would try to sort of map out what are your strategic goals within the organization and sort of establish them as other whys that you can address. And then you can look about identifying who are the analysts that are going to help you with this, how can they help you, etc. But sort of try broaden out those particular whys. But first of all, it'll take a lot of stress off the relationship if there is just one why. Okay, so that there should be other areas of value that it can create. And also by broadening it out, you get more sort of buy-in from your organization, so that Gartner is just not, let's say, merely a marketing tool. It should be seen as an investment for value for the whole organization. So the more you can draw other departments, other key players, stakeholders within your organization, and create value for them, I think you will be best served. So broaden out your why. Who is going to manage this relationship moving forward? There has to be a key representative within your organization that is going to manage the relationship. Then there could be other people that have seats, as they're called, so that they will be able to have interactions, engagements with Gartner also. But who is the main person that is going to lead the charge, let's say, within your organization, is absolutely critical. Okay, so if you believe, like I do, that trust is very much on a one-to-one basis, how this person develops trust within Gartner with these analysts is going to be critical. So what do you need from this person, or let's say what characteristics this person should have? Okay, first of all, they should be a strategic, or have a strategic role, I should say, within your organization. They need to have a view of, what you are doing, where you are going, to get the most out of the relationship, and also to be able to communicate that strategic view across to Gartner. The other people that are managing the seats within Gartner, they can, let's say, bring a representation or a view of what's happening within marketing, etc. But if you really want to influence Gartner, there has to be somebody that has a strategic view of your organization, and they can communicate that across to Gartner clearly and concisely. So the person has to be strategic. 2, the person has to be a great communicator. Sometimes I get asked the question, should this person be technical, non-technical? It's really not the question. The question is not, do you have great technical insights and expertise? The question is, can you communicate those insights and expertise out to a broader audience? And a broader audience, as I mentioned before, in a strategic sense, not just referencing your organization, but dealing with, vastly different areas, which could be M&A, etc. So having a strategic person that can communicate. Generally having a generalist makes some sense, okay? So they can talk about, a little bit of everything that is going on within your organization. So that can make sense. But communication is absolutely critical. If you are an EU SME, have somebody that can really understand English and can understand, let's say, the US culture, okay? Gartner is a US organization. The vast majority of its analysts, they're US based, they've had US experience, their sort of view of the world is US based, and that influences communication, that influences the jargon that they use, that influences even metaphors that are going to be used. So there's definitely an issue of things being lost in translation, and you have to take that into consideration. So the more fluent the person is, not just in language, but somebody that is also fluent in culture, you're going to be best served. So there's a communication, definitely. The person has to be a great communicator. There's a question of cultural and language that has to be there, and also, and probably above all else, the person has to be strategic. And finally, how should you go at it from a process perspective? Okay, so for you, it's a buying process. For Gartner, it's a selling process. And Gartner most definitely is going to try and sell as best they can. If there's one thing that Gartner does really well, it is selling. I admire greatly their selling methodology and their sales people, but something that we need to keep cognizant that they're going to pressure you into closing, they're going to pressure you into getting additional services, etc. So we have a buying and we have a selling process that is taking place. So remember that for your organization, it is strategic. If it is strategic, be true to that strategic view, be true to your own timeline. When does this make sense for your organization? When are you going to have capacity to actually do this onboarding, to do your first engagements? There's a certain amount of training that has to take place. So be true to your timeline and do not fold into what Gartner is going to propose to you. They're trying to, always be closing, as the sales mantra goes. They will try to make it as sweet as possible, introducing additional services, etc. But be true to your timeline, be true to the strategic focus that you have for this relationship. Okay, so that's first of all, let's say, from a timeline perspective. In addition, getting other points of view that is going to make it easier for you to make the decision. We've two topics here. One is a proof of concept. So Gartner will definitely facilitate to you a proof of concept. This could be in an engagement with an analyst. This could be a vendor briefing. Anything basically that you can define that will be part of your overall goal, and that will give you a sort of a taste, or let's say a sort of a Q&A opportunity to actually get a feel for how this is played out. Okay, so Gartner will definitely propose proof of concepts for you. They'll try to keep it limited, maybe to one proof of concept, but if you don't really feel so sure on your first proof of concept, definitely push for a second, even a third. So proof of concepts are very important, and be very hard in those proof of concepts. Be very clear on your ask. What are you looking to get out of that proof of concept for you to feel more certain in closing that contract? So we've got a proof of concept, and also, let's say, I would recommend getting the point of view, or the POV, in addition to a POC, getting a point of view of another company, another SME vendor that is similar to your organization. Obviously, it's not going to be one of your competitors, but if it's similar, so I'm in the cybersecurity space, a similar organization, maybe it could be a Spanish organization because I'm in Spain, similar, let's say, characteristics. Okay, so similar revenue, similar size, startup moving to scale up, and ask Gartner for them to identify that organization, to set up that call, and then really be frank on that call with that other organization, asking them questions. What worked for them? If they were to do it again, what would they change? And sort of a pro tip here, try to make sure that the account manager is not on that call. Okay, this is going to be hard for you to make this happen, but it can be done. So be very clear on that. The account manager should not be on that call. This is a one-to-one. For you to be able to have a fluid conversation, it has to be one-to-one. So be hard on that point. Okay, so from that, how do we go about it, that buying process? Be clear on your timeline, set up a proof of concept, set up a POV with a similar organization. And finally, a sort of an additional sort of pro tip here is, once you are clear on what you want to get done, when you want to get it done by, if you can hold off until the end of a queue or until the end of the year, that's when you're going to get additional price cuts. That's when you're going to get additional services that will be bundled in. So if you can, hold off that little bit longer towards the end of the queue, the end of the year, and there are big discounts to be had. In summary, becoming a Gartner customer is quite stressful. There's lots of pieces of the puzzle, and there's a lot of pressure on you to get this right. So topics that we've talked about today, to sort of simplify it and make sure you're very clear on these three, is why do you want to be a Gartner customer? As we talked about, make this more strategic, broaden it out more over than just getting published. And the same is going to help you create more value within the organization, and also more buy-in, which is also important. Who is going to manage this within your organization? Has to be a strategic person. They have to be a good communicator, and the cultural issue also that we mentioned. How we go about it from a buying process perspective: be true to your own timeline. Look for a proof of concept or multiple proof of concepts. Look for a point of view, so that's an additional external company that is similar to your own, to get their pragmatic perspective on how it happened. for them. And finally, to get those additional goodies or those additional service or those discounts, once you have all of these points clear, hold off until the end of the queue or hold off until the end of the year, where you'll definitely get better discounts and additional services.